Welcome to the show today, everyone. My guest today is Daniel Daggers. After an injury prevented him from pursuing his goal to become a professional football player, Daniel went into real estate, and over the course of a 20-year career, he went from selling £80,000 apartments to selling £100 million estates to some of the world's wealthiest buyers, and been recognised as one of London's leading agents. Today, he's a partner of Knight Frank's private office in London, where he deals with the sale of properties valued in excess of £10 million across London and other destinations around the world. In his career, he's transacted close to 500 properties, close to the value of approximately $4 billion and has consistently been one of the top performing brokers at his agency. I wanted to bring Daniel on the show to find out what it takes to sell some of the world's most expensive properties to some of the wealthiest people on the planet, how he thinks about sales and business in general, and also how he's using social media to build his personal brand and business. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Good morning from me and good afternoon to you. Right?
Yes, because we're on complete opposite sides of the planet right now. So I appreciate you getting up early and taking the time to come on, Daniel. So
absolute pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to get a bit of a sense of your background and your story. So before you got into real estate, really, how did you grow up? And can you just give us a bit of your story, Daniel, please?
Okay, so much like many young men or boys growing up in London and the UK, I was desperate to be a soccer player, a footballer. And that was the holy grail for me. And I did my very best to try and get there, but it didn't work out due to injury. But I was raised in a West London, very central part of London called Maida Vale, and had a mother and father who took a lot of care with me and gave me a lot of attention. I was the only child, and I was just desperate to be a footballer. And schooling wasn't necessarily something I excelled at. I really struggled to learn the way schooling taught. And so I come from an extremely humble background where I grew up in local housing here, government housing till the age of 13. And my parents they saved to send me to a really good private school up until the age of 11, where I mixed with quite affluent kids. And at the same time, my father made a point to but introduce me to the local boys club, which I went to between the age of 9 and 13, where I, went and played football and basketball and table tennis with the kids from the local community who were had a starkly different life to the kids that I went to school with. So it was a real juxtaposition. And then went into secondary school, again, didn't necessarily excel, although when I took a course in business, I started to see how my mind actually really worked when it was engaged. And I was able to pay attention. I found something quite interesting because the concept of adopting pi, 3.142, I couldn't quite understand how that was that particularly relevant to life, because I haven't heard my dad using pi or my mum. But then when we were talking about business, I can understand it, so it resonated with me, and therefore I was interested. I left school, and at the time I was trying to win a professional contract as a footballer. I broke my collarbone whilst I was studying surveying because I didn't have the grades to go to university, and I was left pretty much at home in a sling with a broken collarbone, thinking, what am I going to do now? And that's when a local estate agency that I did a 2-week experience with on behalf of my course when I was studying business asked me if I was available and would I consider taking a permanent role there. And that's how I grew up. Awesome. And ended up in real estate.
Yeah, it's a cool story. And I think one thing you said that really resonates with me is that juxtaposition you had between growing up in public housing and fairly humble beginnings, but then also interacting with private school, I guess like wealthier people, And I've noticed in my own life, maybe not quite an extreme juxtaposition, but, you know, like I've had jobs working in factories on factory floors with that sort of socioeconomic class, and then I've had jobs where I've interacted with extremely wealthy people, and having that kind of juxtaposition, as you said, I've found has been really valuable in allowing me to kind of relate to anyone and understand people better. Is that something you notice as well? Is that kind of helped you relate to people?
Look, whatever business you do, unless it's very much on the computer, it's all about communication, okay? And in the business that I went into, it was about verbal communication, a little bit of written communication. And when you have the ability to communicate with lots of different people and understand what resonates with them, and you can read someone pretty quickly because your skill set is so wide and deep, because you've met so many different kinds of people, you're able to resonate with someone very, very quickly. And that is so important, because the world and business is built on relationships. And if you're able to spark one quickly and maintain it due to your experiences growing up, I think it was one of the wisest things my parents did for me was to send me to the local boys club. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I mean, you know, there was some times that I wasn't a big kid, and there was some times there where it was very difficult, and, you know, there was bullying and there were fights, and you had to stick up for yourself. And I was the only Jewish boy in this boys club with like 100 kids, and you know, that was a difficult place to be, but it made me extremely durable, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Yeah, I really wouldn't change it for the world. It was just a fascinating learning curve, and I think my parents didn't want to put me. They obviously didn't want to put me in harm's way, but they did want me to find balance and know that the world isn't populated full of people who similar to the people who go to my school at the time, and I think that's one of the wisest moves my parents made.
Yeah. It's so cool. Such a good experience. So I love that. So you fell into real estate quite literally. You broke your collarbone, that kind of dashed your hopes of becoming a professional football player, and you start this career. And now you deal with ultra high net worth individuals, these properties that are amazing, worth over 10 million pounds plus in London and around the world. But I'd imagine you didn't start like that. So I was wondering if you could maybe just talk a bit about the progression of how do you get from that entry point. How did you get there so quickly? Because you are quite young for someone who got to that level. So maybe if you could just talk about that.
Okay, so to put it in perspective, I'm 39 now, and I started working at 17 and a half, something like that. And I'm pretty sure it works the same way in Sydney, because I've been to Sydney for a few days to speak before, but for a conference with my business mate Frank. But I was sat in a window like so many other thousands of estate agents there in the UK, sat in the window waiting for people to either pop in or call us. And I had a card box, so literally a box with cards for computers around. On those cards, someone would come in, or they'd make a phone call, express an interest in buying something. I'll take their telephone number, their address, their home address, their name, and then their requirements. And then on the back of the card, whenever I showed them a property, I would list down the properties on the back of the card with any of the feedback, so I can learn what they were looking for. And I did that for 11 years. We adopted computers and the internet probably about 4 years into my job. So I started in 1997. By 81, I remember computers coming in and websites. I remember talking about websites. I mean, this is nuts, isn't it? For everyone who's listening to this, if you're sub 30, you're probably shaking your head going, what? So, you know, it's a fascinating place to be, because we were on defense, right? We were sat there in our office waiting for people to contact us. And the only way that we could communicate with people was via adverts in the newspapers and people driving by. So our sphere of influence was probably only, you know, a couple of kilometres wide, hoping that someone's going to drive by us, or within within the vicinity of the paper distribution, okay, to put it into perspective.
Yeah.
So I'm sat in that office for 11 years with great guys and girls. The guy, the next person youngest to me was 15 years older, okay? So I didn't have anyone to go for a beer with, or chill out with, because they were in a different time in their lives. And so that was a slog. That was hard. That was really hard work.
Yeah.
Did that for 11 years. A big business called Knight Frank saw my growth within the neighborhood that I worked in, which was really close to home. I think that's really important for any young people that are listening to this, that if you can narrow your commute to your work, that makes life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I learned a huge amount from the guys around me. And then a big business called Knight Frank, which I'm a partner of now, saw my growth, and they approached me a couple of times. I said no, because I'm extremely loyal. To put it in perspective, I've only had 2 jobs. And then I went and moved to Knight Frank in their St. John's Wood office, which was probably only 2 miles away from the office that I was working in, called Vickers and Company. And it was November 2007, and that's just when the market was about to fall off the cliff. And I was, understood that, and then I made what was probably one of the wisest decisions of my own back, which was that I got given the opportunity to either work in 2 segments of the market in this particular office, because it was split by into £4 million it place. And at the time, there was, everyone knew the world was literally just about to fall off a cliff.
Yep.
And I felt that if this was going to happen and I was going to make the move, I needed to be in a position where I felt that I could execute business and grow. But I also systematically felt that if the world was going to go through a massive change, and in a negative capacity, it was the super rich client base that was going to be able to bounce back quicker. And so I decided to go down a more painful route of starting in probably the worst market ever to start a new job, or in recent times.
Yep.
And I started working between £4 to £10 million, which was our prime market. And that's how I got into selling properties from £80,000 to £2 million, to then jumping from that to £4 million to £10 million bracket.
Yep.
And that was my journey.
That's cool. And yeah, it was, looking back, a great decision. And I guess it's kind of comforting as well. You can look back and say, if you were able to do it then, you don't have much to, you obviously have to keep working hard, but if you can get through that, you can kind of get through anything professionally. So I love that. And I was curious, how important was mentorship to you for your success in your role? Because I believe I read that you had a key mentor named Stuart earlier on in your career, and he kind of taught you a few lessons. So yeah, how important was mentorship to you?
So I don't think, I love the guys that I used to work with, okay, and I say that sincerely, because I'm still extremely good friends with them, and I pop into the office and we've done business together, but it's more of a friendship, and at the time it felt like family.
Yep.
Okay, because I was a young kid. I was 17 and a half when I started working there, and I left at the age of 28.
Yeah.
So, they be spotty teenager to an adult, right, who knows the business relatively well. And I don't think they were great. They weren't overt mentors, but they mentored me in a way that I saw how hard you had to work. I saw how important it was to build relationships. I saw how important it was. And what Stuart was amazing at doing is that he was able to build a relationship, because he would talk about, his family and his life with our clients, and they loved him. They loved him for it, which was brilliant. So they were great mentors, because I saw work ethic, I saw being honourable, being true, being honest, understanding the business inside and out, and how every penny counted and how every lead counted, okay, because it was a small independent business. So that was the most amazing lesson, okay? But I'm going to credit myself here, because they weren't overtly mentoring me. Yeah. It wasn't like, Daniel, let's spend an hour together, let's sit down, I'm going to run through the legal system with you, I'm going to talk to you about how we negotiate. They didn't do that. It was like learning on the job.
Yeah.
And therefore, I realized after about a year that I had to really listen intensely to the conversations that were taking place, and then suck knowledge out of that conversation,
Right.
and how they communicate,
Yeah.
and then adopt it in my own way. And so I learned a huge amount from the guys. The boss of the office recently passed away. Sorry, it makes me emotional sometimes. Really, was a very special guy and gave me an opportunity that I didn't see coming. He passed away recently, and it was a very, very sad moment, and I'll never forget him. His name was Stephen Vickers. He was a great guy. But I see so much value in that I am an overt person when it comes to mentoring. So I mentor a lot of people, and it's something that I enjoy doing because I like giving back to people who are maybe equally as hungry and equally as passionate as me. It's important for me to give back.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that as well, the way you said that, because you weren't overtly mentored necessarily. As you said, you had to kind of take the pieces from the conversation that were relevant and apply it to yourself. And I think that's something that people need to keep in mind as well, because you can't just kind of sit there and wait for someone to mentor you and teach you. You need to be able to actually get that yourself from the environment. But then it's also great that you now want to give back and do it in a more overt way, because it is definitely valuable. So it's a great lesson.
I think, James, what's really interesting is that at the time they couldn't really be that overt because they had a small office with maybe 8, 9, 10 people in it, maximum. Now I can be extremely overt about it, like doing stuff like this, which is incredible, right? Mm-hmm. What amazing piece of technology, what an amazing opportunity for over-communicators like me to pass on knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe if the opportunity was there for them, I'd like to think they would have done it too.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. So you kind of touched on it briefly, but I want to know how do you see the value of relationships in business and sales? Because I read that at first, when you first started in real estate, you were more focused on paying off the speakers in your Vauxhall Corsa rather than kind of helping clients. And I think you quickly learnt to kind of flip that script. So I was wondering if you could just talk about the value of relationships in business and how that's really evolved for you over your career.
Okay, so there's an element of hand to mouth, right? When you're young, you need to earn every buck because you want to spend every buck. Yeah. You either want to put like a new speaker system in your car, which at the time was the thing to do in the 90s, okay? Wow, I sound really old. And, now it might be a new pair of off-white sneakers, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like this. Because you see short-term goals, short-term gain, right? If I make this amount of money, I know what I'm going to do with that money. And I think that the older you get, you start to see opportunity and execution turn into investment strategy. Mm-hmm. And how do I make more money? And then where do I have to be clever? Okay, so I realized that I couldn't just live the rest of my life just buying stuff. Okay, and when you get older, you realize just buying stuff doesn't necessarily make you inherently happy. Yeah. So I understood that very quickly that every person that I engage with has to want to do business with me. Okay, so I have to give them a framework of feeling comfortable, and they have to be able to resonate with me. So a person who knows a little bit about a lot of things is better than a person who knows a lot about very small amounts of things.
Yeah.
Okay, because you can't interact with everybody, right? All shapes, all sizes, so on and so on, especially in a multicultural society that we're living in now. And so it's about building relationships with somebody and not seeing anyone as just a sale. Yeah. I don't see anyone as a sale. I want the person that I meet and that I execute business with. In fact, I don't even have to execute business with anybody, but my goal is that every person that interacts with me has a positive experience, so much so that the next time I meet them, they hug me hello.
That's great.
Okay? If I go around having that impact on people, I am practically guaranteeing myself the best opportunity to help those people in what they want, because I'm going to be the first person they speak to, right? How many other estate agents and brokers do people hug?
Not many, I think.
Yeah. Not many. But if you walk down the street in London with me, yeah, for half an hour, if we walk the streets of London, central London, you'd be seeing me high-fiving and hugging people a lot.
I love it. It's such a good way to think about business and sales. It's focused.
Well, I think so.
Absolutely. It makes for a nicer life and career. Absolutely. And it gets the results as well, as is evident by your career. You're not just trying to take from people, you're giving so much that people want to work with you, as you said. So I totally love that approach, and I think it's something people need to keep in mind, for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So,
but also, like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I'm going around hugging people to get business.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm an extremely hungry human being.
Absolutely.
Right? And I know how to take opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah? I think that's really important, to be able to see an opportunity and go for it.
Yep.
And my parents built a very strong backbone in me. Okay? Yep. So peer pressure doesn't work with me. Yeah?
Yeah.
I feel that my moral compass, with my backbone that my parents have given me, just allows me to go about doing what I think is right in a healthy way. Yeah? And peer pressure just does not count. No one peer pressures me into anything.
That's awesome.
That's being great. Strong and determined and focused and good is just like a really core fundamental for me.
Absolutely. And that's a credit to your parents for instilling that in you. That's amazing. So I love that.
Yeah, so on mum and dad.
So one thing I really wanted to talk about as well, just want to be mindful of your time sort of coming up here, but one of the way I actually discovered about you, Daniel, was because you have a really big Instagram presence. And everyone listening, make sure you go follow Daniel on Instagram. We'll link that up in the show notes. But he posts up, as I said, as we've talked about, he deals with £10 million plus properties in London, and some of them are absolutely beautiful. And he posts behind the scenes of the showings he does and offers tips on business and real estate and about the market in general. So make sure you go follow Daniel. But I was really curious to find out, I guess, how you saw that opportunity, because there doesn't really seem to be, even in today's world, which is quite surprising, there doesn't seem to be that many real estate brokers, especially in London, who are using Instagram like you are. So I was wondering if you could just talk to us a bit about why you decided to start focusing on Instagram and social media and what you've actually gotten out of that in your career.
Yeah, I mean, I can't quite understand how people don't or haven't seen the opportunity. Okay, so if you are, let's talk through this. If you are selling a product or service, okay, no one's going to buy that from you or lease that from you if they don't know about it, right? And if everyone's spending an hour or 2 hours on average a day on social media, on different social platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter, if you are not on any of those platforms, you are blind to people who are consuming content in a space where you can market for free. Yeah? So we'll go back 2 decades, or even a decade, or even like 3 or 4 years. Yeah? Because we've seen just a huge shift in culture. And previously, if you were looking to advertise your product or service, you would have to use newspaper, radio, TV, magazine, or shop window, or a guy in a sandwich board. Yeah? The guy in a sandwich board you can use now. I'm not entirely sure how effective that would be, depending on what product you're selling. Your people aren't necessarily walking into shops as much as they used to. Shops and offices.
Yep.
Not every business can advertise in your local newspaper. Plus, very few people that I know of read newspapers on a daily basis. They consume their news from their mobile phone. And then, if you can afford to advertise in TV and radio, then go for it. But a lot of people can't. And so the only place you can really market yourself for free is social. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that's a bit of a no-brainer. And very simply, about 3 years ago, I got invited by the developers of 432 Park Avenue, which is the tallest residential tower in the Western Hemisphere. And before it was completed, some of the top brokers across the planet got invited to have a look at it so we can go back to our client base and our customer base. And we went up on this outside lift and into the 80th floor, which was a shell, and it was a pretty chilly day. And Facebook had just launched their Facebook Live. And I thought to myself, well, let's see if this works, because very few people in the world will have access to this space. And so I think it's really interesting content, right?
Yeah.
People might like this. So I went on and I did it, and it was really cringe, because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. But I walked around this apartment and I was using every word like this is amazing, this is incredible, and walked around, and lo and behold, about 2 hours later, I had something like 8,000 views. Okay, and I thought to myself, wow, this is really impactful, because I've just tapped on 8,000 or so people's shoulders that I know, telling them this is what I do, and please stay in touch with me. Okay, that's what I was doing. It was marketing, right? It was a marketing point.
Yep.
So when I realized the impact that can have, and the fact that the asset class that I was selling is so aspirational and visually inspiring, I came back to London, spoke to the head of marketing and said to him, right, I want to formalize this. I saw the brokers in the US using social media, and they were sort of showing themselves in good light and paying very little value to the properties. And I thought, well, I'm going to go back to London. I'm going to flip the script here. I'm going to do 80% property, 20% my life, because I need people to buy into me and know me, because I'm offering a service, but they need to see what I'm seeing, because this is an incredible product. Some of the best properties around the world I go in to see, and I'm going to take you with me. So I came back, set up my Instagram account, because I felt it was the best visual tool to express what I do. And, I just started posting, and people thought I was absolutely nuts, because I was in a very senior role in a big corporate business, and people thought that it was a bit of an ego play, which it wasn't. And so I started doing that. So I put my face on camera, which was petrifying, and after a few takes, explained that I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to have a look at these amazing houses and wish me luck. And then about 4 hours later, a client of mine who I hadn't spoken to in a couple of years sent me a text message saying, hi there, we haven't spoken for a long time, I hope you're well. Look, I own a big house in St. John's Wood that I might be interested in selling. And I looked back at my stories, and I saw that this person had seen the story, so they knew that I was out with a buyer. And that's when I went, I have to double down. This is really important. What an amazing opportunity. Let's get going. And now I'm at 25,000 followers. I've got friends and agents all around the world. We all refer business to one another. And my client base communicates with me via social. That's it. That's the story.
It's so good, and it's so powerful. And like you said, it's crazy to me that, especially something like real estate, which, as you said, is so aspirational, so visual. It's just, Instagram was made for that. So yeah, it's amazing that more people aren't taking advantage of it. And it's great, as you said, you just jumped on the opportunity and ran with it. And just that example you gave there is a perfect example of how it's not an ego trip. It's actually a marketing tool that's going to get you results. So I love that.
It's a huge marketing tool. And in an era where the real estate sector is being challenged every day, if you are an agent, and this is me, it's like a tannoy thing for me now. If you are an agent, you are a broker around the world, or you're selling a product, I don't care what it is. If you don't have your own digital marketplace, your own Instagram account, and you're on all the social platforms, you're in a very, very dangerous place.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think it's really important that everyone doubles down on that now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love that. So, sort of coming up on time here, Daniel, want to be mindful of your time. So I just want to know, is there anything I haven't asked you, or just anything you really want to make sure that you pass on to the audience before we finish up here?
Yeah, I think in a world where everyone is very curious, and in a world where mental health is vitally important, and I see big change in the world happening right now, I want people to know that doing good, doing the right thing working hard, and having a strong backbone and a strong moral compass, okay, is extremely valuable, coupled with the fact that you are a positive person. It's important that you stay positive. And every mistake you make, you learn from, okay? Don't bury your head into the sand and think, it's the end of the world like a lot of young people do. Stay positive and be true to yourself. That's really what I want for young people nowadays.
Awesome. That's such a good message. Stay positive, learn from your mistakes, work hard, stay hungry. I love that. So what's the best way for people to connect with you, Daniel? It sounds like Instagram's the best way. Maybe if you could just drop your handle so that the people listening here can easily find you and see what you're up to.
Yeah, I'd love that. Would love that. So my handle, get ready everybody, it's an easy one, it's my name. So it's Daniel, Daniel _ Daggers, Daggers. I also gave myself a hashtag, which is hashtag Mr. Super Prime. So please add me, send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. And if I have the time, I will endeavour to come back to you. And James, thank you so much for all your time and the opportunity. It's very kind of you in reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. My pleasure. And thank you very much for coming on as well. And everyone listening, make sure you go follow Daniel on Instagram because, like I was saying before, he posts some amazing properties. If you've ever been in London or south of France or any exotic place and you've seen like these amazing properties and you've always wondered what are they like on the inside, what's the process like for actually selling that sort of property, who actually buys these sort of properties, Daniel's going to take you behind the scenes and show you exactly how that all works and give you some good inspo for your Instagram feed. So Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. You take care and have a nice evening and a great weekend.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this interview with Daniel today. I really hope you got a lot of value from the interview. And if you're listening to this through Apple Podcasts, I've got a real quick favor to ask. If you can leave me a rating and review, that would really help me out because it helps new people discover the show, it helps with the ranking, and it helps give the show more credibility. So can you please leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts? And if you're not using iOS, you can still help me out. Take a screenshot of you listening to the show in whatever app you're using, post it to your Instagram story, tag me at jharris, 2 R's and 3 S's, and that would really help me out and it would mean the world. So if you could do any of those things, you'd be doing me a massive favor and I'd really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.